So two tech giants just shook hands on a deal that's about to flip the entire computing industry on its head. So after tracking Silicon Valley for a long time, I can tell you, when Nvidia drops $5 billion on Intel stock and these two start building chips together, this is going to be interesting. Remember when everyone thought Intel was totally done for? And do you remember when Nvidia was just a gaming GPU company? Well, they're about to start building x86 chips with RTX graphics baked right in and custom CPUs that'll power the next generation of AI infrastructure. Is this the death of discrete graphics cards as we know them? Or are we watching AMD's worst nightmare unfold? So I'm going to break down some of the massive shifts that this partnership could create and why your next PC might be completely different than anything we've seen before. Let's dive into this today. This is a good one. All right, so Nvidia just bet $5 billion that Intel can pull off one of the biggest comebacks in tech history. Now, they're not just investing, they're literally redesigning how the computer works from the ground up. So we're going to show you why this partnership changes a lot about the AI infrastructure and about the PC that you'll probably be using in the next 2 years. So let's jump over to this announcement here today. So this is from Nvidia's press room here, right? We're going to go through a couple different articles. So the first one here is that Nvidia and Intel to develop AI infrastructure and personal computing products. So Intel to design and manufacture custom data centers and client CPUs with Nvidia NVLink. Nvidia invests $5 billion to common stock. So this is a really interesting move because Intel has the power and one of the largest fab systems in the country, right? And so this is a huge move for these two to partner together. The companies will focus on seamlessly connecting NVIDIA and Intel architectures into NVIDIA NVLink, integrating the strength of NVIDIA's AI and accelerating computing with CPU and x86. So now think of an x86 chip with the power of NVIDIA's GPUs like built into it, right? For data centers, the Intel will build NVIDIA custom x86 CPUs that NVIDIA will integrate into its AI infrastructure platforms and offer to the market. For personal computing, Intel will build and offer to the market x86 system on chips, right? So that's all together with NVIDIA RX GPUs. So instead of going with the Intel inside, which has always been really crappy for graphics, now it's going to put them together. These new x86 RTX SoCs will power a wide range of PCs that demand integration of real-world class CPUs and GPUs. So, now the discrete GPU is kind of interesting because you can upgrade it, but man, to be able to package these two together. And so NVIDIA's founder says this is a historic collaboration, tightly couples NVIDIA's AI and accelerated computers with Intel's CPU and vast x86 ecosystem. And it really is true. This is going to be a really interesting play. I think this has got a long ways to go. Intel's x86 architecture has been foundational for modern computing for decades, and we are innovating across our portfolio to enable the workloads of the future. So this is really an interesting move, and my guess is that you're definitely going to see Intel stock shoot up on this tomorrow. And so this is a very interesting announcement. I'll be curious to see what happens with NVIDIA stock on this, to see if the NVIDIA investors are just as excited. I think they will be because this does give them a lot of different power. Now, let's go over to Tom's Hardware because, the guys who have been the de facto standard reported on hardware for a lot of decades at this point. So NVIDIA and Intel announced joint development, Intel x86 RTX SoCs for PCs with NVIDIA graphics, also custom NVIDIA data center x86 processors, and then this, cats and dogs living together. I loved the subtitle. It's definitely made me chuckle because, these two were pretty common enemies for a long time, right? So, definitely rivals here. But the product includes x86 tightly fused with an NVIDIA RTX graphics, right? So that's what we're talking about here. Now, additionally, NVIDIA will buy $5 billion of Intel common stock, which is currently only at $23, representing roughly 5% ownership in Intel. It's in the very early stages. There's obviously going to be a ton of regulatory tape, and this is going to take a long time to get through. But NVIDIA hasn't disclosed whether it will use Intel Foundry to produce any of these products yet. My guess is they will. I'd be kind of surprised to see them not do this because Intel has used TSMC to manufacture some of its own recent projects, but they do have a lot of processing, right? A lot of its foundry systems here. I know here in the Phoenix area where I'm at, there's one of the largest Intel plants not super far from me. But in either case, NVIDIA has been mulling using Intel Foundry since 2022, has fab test chips there, and participates in the U.S. Department's RAMP-C project. The DoD project involves NVIDIA already making chips. So this is kind of a partnership that sounds like it was already bound to happen because they've kind of been cuddling up to each other, and it sounds like they just made it to at least first or second base here. But while the two companies have engaged in heated competition in some market segments, Intel and Nvidia have partnered for decades, ensuring interoperability between their hardwares. Now, the one who's really going to be really sad about this is going to be AMD, right? Intel said it will compete directly with AMD's APUs. For AMD, that means it faces intensifying competition from a company. And AMD was already kind of losing to Nvidia. This partnership is definitely going to hurt them dramatically. So this will be a kind of interesting thing. I'll be interested to see if the partnership goes forward in the future, if it stays a partnership, or if the two eventually merge, or Nvidia takes over Intel, or kind of what that looks like. It's going to be an interesting thing to watch play in the future. Intel's worked with similar type of chips with AMD, right? But they weren't successful. And AMD has really kind of struggled to be able to keep up with Nvidia over the last few years, particularly. Intel notoriously axed the Kaby Lake process 2009, and the existing system were left without proper driver support, right? I don't think we're going to see this. We're told that both Intel and Nvidia were responsible for their own respective drivers in the new modules. That'll be kind of interesting. We're going to see how well these two can play together, right? Like I said, cats and dogs, right? Cats and dogs. So this will be an interesting take, right? Because this NVLink Fusion here is going to be an interesting play for the data centers. And so we'll see where this ends up coming, as it goes all the way to the bottom. But we'll learn more details. Obviously, more details are going to come over the coming weeks. Now, this is going to be really interesting as it moves forward, because Intel buying stock means that they're buying approximately 5% of the Intel at current market value. And this gives Intel the war chest that they desperately need to fix their foundry problems and to try to compete with TSMC, who they've been partnering with. Now, for context, Intel's entire R&D budget last year was about $16 billion. So this is about a 30% boost to their innovation capacity. Nvidia gets a guaranteed manufacturing partner who won't prioritize competitors like they experienced with TSMC. So the timing's perfect. Intel stock was totally beaten down, so it's a good buy for Nvidia, and this gives Nvidia maximum leverage for their investment. So this financial alignment means both companies sink or swim together. No more playing on both sides. Now, as always, I'm curious to hear what you guys think about this deal. Would love to have anybody who has insights on this. Leave a comment down below. Best compliment you can give me. Now, Intel's building system on chips with Nvidia RTX GPU, and this is going to be really interesting. So think about this for a minute. No more separate CPU and GPU. Everything on one chip with zero latency between the components. Now, from an AI perspective, this is going to be really good. From an upgrade standpoint, this is kind of bad. But for laptops, this could be really interesting. They could start to build those two together, and with those built together, you could start to get shared GPU RAM. You could share the RAM on the GPU, which would be really fascinating, right? So now think that you ship a laptop with 128 gigs of RAM on it, and the CPU and GPU can both pull from that. That would be a really interesting. So this would kill the bottleneck that's plagued PC performance for decades, the slow communication between the processor and the graphics. Now, Apple showed the world what an integrated chip can do with their M1, and they've continued to advance that now with the M4, M1, 2, 3, and 4, right? And there's a lot that they've done, and this has shown, and Apple's actually, surprisingly, their machines run really well on AI. Why the company hasn't done really well with AI is a different discussion, but we won't go into that for now. So for gaming and creative professionals, means laptops that can run Cyberpunk at max setting without sounding like a jet engine. AMD's APU suddenly looks like toys compared to what Intel and Nvidia could cook up here. Now, Nvidia is getting Intel to build custom x86 processors specifically optimized for their AI infrastructure. So these aren't just tweaked to Xeons. We're talking about ground-up designs that speak NVLink natively. So that's an interesting play, right? Because it solves Nvidia's biggest problem. They've been stuck with generic CPUs that can't keep up with their GPUs. So Intel's advanced packaging means that tech means that these chips can have insane memory bandwidth and interconnections. So data centers running these will see a 30 to 50% efficiency gain just from eliminating CPU to GPU communication, like I was talking about, right? Now, every hyperscale from Google to Meta is watching this really closely. It could obsolete billions in existing infrastructure. So this is also an interesting play in all the money that's been dumped into data centers, because these new processing could make data centers crazy powerful for AI and much cheaper. So if Intel can manufacture RTX integrated x86 chips at scale Why would average users want separate graphics cards? Now, if you're a heavy gamer and you want to swap out your graphics card, that may be a different story for like a gaming type system. But you could also even look at that where you could see it becoming additional power. So we're looking at $800 laptops with graphics powers of today's $2,000 gaming rig. So content creators get CUDA cores, ray tracing, DLSS, without needing external GPU or even eGPU docks. The discrete GPU market shrinks to enthusiasts and professionals who need multiple cards. So this will fundamentally break NVIDIA's current business model, but they're cannibalizing themselves before someone else does. So Intel finally gets a real answer to Apple Silicon that doesn't require abandoning the x86 architecture. Now, AMD's entire strategy relies on being the only company that makes competitive CPUs and GPUs. Now they're facing Intel CPUs with NVIDIA graphics built into it, the best of both worlds. So their Radeon graphics suddenly have to compete with RTX features at the chip level, not just as an add-on card. So the data center market where AMD's EPYC processors were winning gets flooded with NVIDIA optimized Intel chips. So AMD's stuck. They can't match NVIDIA's AI software stack or Intel's manufacturing capacity once they get it fixed with this extra boost in cash. So stock analysts are already questioning AMD's long-term positioning, and AMD dropped 8% on the announcement. Now, if your company has systems that aren't connected and need to be connected, reach out to us because here at Startup Hack, our specialty is connecting systems to help your company work to maximum efficiency. Check out startuphack.com/Spencer because we can help you out. Now, Intel's Foundries business just got its biggest customer and vote of confidence imaginable. They're not just making chips for NVIDIA, they're co-developing the architecture from scratch. So this means TSMC's stranglehold on advanced chip manufacturing for AI graphics is going to be totally gone. So Western governments desperately wanted chip manufacturing independence, and this partnership is going to deliver it. Intel's 18A process node suddenly has guaranteed volume, making the economics work. So supply chain disruption from Taiwan tensions becomes less catastrophic for the tech industry. Now, as always, make sure you leave a comment because I'm curious to hear what you guys think about this. I know some of you out there has got some inside juice for me. I want to get the tea here, as my kids would say, right? Because they call me a boomer. But anyways, every laptop with these new SoCs become an AI workstation capable of running local LLMs more powerfully, which is something I've been preaching here on this channel. I even have playlists that show you how to build out your own AI DIY PC, so you don't have to wait 2 years for this. You can build out your own. I show you how to do it for under 500 bucks. Now, no more sending your data to the cloud. Everything would be processed locally with RTX acceleration. So think of like a Microsoft Copilot Plus PC, but way faster. Developers can build AI features knowing every new PC will have tensor cores and ray tracing. So the AI PC stops being marketing fluff and becomes actual hardware differentiation. Because right now, an AI PC requires one of these discrete graphics cards, and I know everybody's going to come at me who's like, got 128 gigs on my M4. It runs fantastic. And it actually doesn't run all that great. Your GPUs are still going to run circles around it. But I get that it runs well, but that means you got to pay like $15 million for that process from Apple. Anyways, hyperscalers can now get servers where the CPU and GPU speak the same language natively. No more PCIe bottlenecks limiting AI training speeds. Everything's on the same interconnect. Power efficiencies will jump 40% when you eliminate redundant memory copies between CPU and GPU. Cooling requirements drop significantly with integrated design versus separate GPU and CPU. The total cost of ownership for AI infrastructure could drop by half within 3 years with this partnership. So smaller companies can finally afford enterprise AI infrastructure that actually performs. Now, if you want to build it out, you don't have to wait the 3 years because in the IT industry, 3 years is a long time. Reach out to us. Our specialty is building out some scrappy systems that can help you to build AI software that you can host yourself. Check us out at startuphack.com/Spencer because we'd love to help you out. Now, CUDA becomes even more dominant when it's baked into the CPU architecture itself. Windows has to be completely rewritten to take advantage of this unified memory architecture, but with the long-standing partnership between Intel and Windows, which has Microsoft and Intel, which has definitely weakened over the last few years, you're going to see that strengthen. Linux distributions need new schedulers that can understand CPU and GPU cores as equal citizens, and this is going to be really fascinating. Game engines can assume RTX features are always available, changing how games are designed. Every application becomes potentially AI accelerated without special GPU programming. So Intel's One API and Nvidia's CUDA have to merge or create compatibility layers with each other. So what's going to be interesting here is Qualcomm's Windows on ARM's push suddenly looks even weaker against x86 with integrated RTX. So I just recently bought a Surface laptop because now at this point, like I'm doing a lot of management. I write a lot of code, which is plenty powerful enough. Don't run a lot of AI on my own computer because I have a lot of AI servers that I've built out. So we have racks and racks of AI servers, and I'm constantly working with with clients. Just recently bought 2 Blackwell cards with a client. Super excited about that stuff, like cool stuff that we're getting to work on here. Now, so I don't do a lot of that processing on my laptop. So for me, battery life was the win. So I chose a Windows ARM machine, right? Now it's really good, and I've been pretty impressed with it overall. But now when you start to talk about the ability to couple the power of an x86 and an integrated RTX, that's going to be really powerful. Be really curious to see what the battery life is going to be, but overall they should be able to drive that down. Now Apple is going to need to respond, and you're going to see their M series chips will get stronger in the graphics, even though they've been pretty good in the AI category. Google and Amazon will accelerate their custom chip programs to try to avoid a dependency on these, right? This just ratcheted up Intel and Nvidia's stronghold on this. Chinese chip makers lose access to both Intel and Nvidia tech simultaneously. So this could be a huge setback in the war for tech against China. Startup chip companies face an impossible barrier competing with the combined ecosystem of these two. So the semiconductor industry consolidates into 3 camps: Nvidia slash Intel, TSMC slash Apple, and everyone else scrambling to try to catch up, including AMD. Now, curious to hear what you guys think, right? Intel promises production by 2026, but they've missed almost every single deadline for the last 5 years. But Nvidia putting $5 billion at risk and them pushing behind could be an interesting motivator that Intel hasn't had before now. So creating unified architectures is incredibly complex. Apple took 4 years with full control. Regulatory approvals isn't guaranteed on this either. So this level of integration could trigger some antitrust concerns. Both companies have vastly different corporate structures, and that could play an interesting part. If Intel's 18A process has problems, the entire partnership could fall apart. So we're watching the birth of a computing duopoly that controls both AI and traditional processing. 5 years from now, every computer ships with AI acceleration as standard as USB ports. The $500 billion AI infrastructure market gets dominated by these 2 companies working together. Developers only target 2 platforms, Apple Silicon and Intel slash Nvidia x86. Everything else dies. So this will be really interesting to watch this play out over the next couple of years, because I think as we also see a lot of the hype die from AI, but the reality of it come up, right? We're in the S curve. And I think as we see that happen, and we see some of these big hardware plays, that's where you could see a second rise into some of this AI stuff. So you want to make sure you're positioned for this. One of the best things you can do is learn how to use the technology, learn how to build software, learn how to build on AI. Our channel here is one of the best places you can do that. We have hundreds of code samples. I'm dropping 3 new code samples next week, all with new samples around how to program with AI. Very simple, easy to dive in. Here at Startup Hack, we love to train software developers as well as build custom software solutions for companies. So reach out if we can help. Check out startuphack.com/Spencer, and here's some great information about our services.
Hi, I'm Spencer, a fractional CTO. With over a decade of executive leadership and 25 years in software development, I've transformed technology teams and products for businesses just like yours. As your fractional CTO, you get the strategic guidance of a seasoned technology executive without the full-time commitment, perfect for companies ready to leverage cutting-edge technology without expanding headcount. My team at Startup Hack has already built advanced AI agents for small and medium businesses, automating complex workflows and delivering advanced ROI to human workflows. We specialize in creating custom software that connects your systems into a single coherent technology ecosystem. Our development approach focuses on tangible business outcomes. For one client, we developed AI-powered workflows that cut days off of human processes. For another company, by connecting multiple systems, we reduced processing time to increase their ROI by over 75%. We don't don't just write code, we architect solutions that scale. Whether you need cloud system architecture, data integration between legacy systems, or custom AI agents that automate your unique business processes, my team delivers results that exceed your expectations. Having led technology for a lot of companies and launched 7 successful brands of my own, I bring battle-tested expertise to your business challenges. Our specialty is turning technological complexity into business advantage. So if you're ready to harness the power of AI and custom software to drive your business forward, let's connect. Together, we'll build technology that doesn't just solve today's problems, it positions you for tomorrow's opportunities. Technology leadership, decades of experience, AI powered. Reach out today and we can help you. Check out starterpack.com/Spencer.